The shimmering, crystalline architecture of the Xylarian royal palace stretched towards the twin suns of Xylara Prime, its countless spires piercing the vibrant blue sky like living jewels, reflecting millennia of imperial grandeur and unwavering tradition. Within its heart, in the vast, echoing hall of celestial reunions, Empress Xylara, a being of luminous blue skin, intricate facial markings that pulsed with a gentle light, and 6 gracefully articulated limbs, rested upon her elevated, gravity-defying throne. Her many eyes, usually calm and reflective as a still cosmic pool, surveyed the meticulously arranged assembly of the Empire's most revered nobles, formidable military commanders, and brilliant scholars. Today marked a monumental occasion, the return of her only daughter, Princess Lyra, from an unprecedented diplomatic mission to the newly charted, untamed fringes of the galactic spiral arm. The air vibrated with dignified anticipation, a low hum of hushed conversations filling the cavernous space, punctuated by the soft chime of ancient sonic tapestries, depicting Xylarian triumphs woven into the very fabric of the hall. Everyone expected the princess to arrive accompanied by the usual retinue of highly regarded alien dignitaries, perhaps a newly forged alliance with a technologically advanced, albeit slightly less refined, stellar civilization. They envisioned a procession of beings with multiple limbs, or perhaps translucent skin, or even those who communicated through shifting light patterns, anything, really, that fit within the understood, accepted framework of galactic savants. Then, with a barely perceptible sigh of displaced air, the grand energy portal at the far end of the hall hummed to life, cycling open with a soft, resonant thrum. A collective murmur of excitement rippled through the assembled court, swiftly, followed by an audible collective gasp that echoed off the polished surfaces, silencing every whisper. Princess Lyra stepped through, her movements as fluid and elegant as ever, her elaborate ceremonial robes shimmering with iridescent dust from distant nebulae. But she was not alone. By her side, walking with an oddly upright, 2-legged gait, was a creature utterly foreign, shockingly out of place against the backdrop of Xylarian opulence and advanced bioengineering. This being had only 2 limbs for locomotion, 2 more for manipulation, and a single, surprisingly compact head featuring just 2 eyes, devoid of the intricate, multifaceted lenses or glowing bioluminescence common among sentient species. Its skin was a peculiar, unadorned tan, and most shockingly, it possessed an almost primal covering of fine, dark strands upon its head and face. It was undeniably, unmistakably, a human. Empress Xylara's many eyes, which had been fixed on her, daughter with maternal pride, narrowed almost imperceptibly, then widened in a flicker of profound disbelief and confusion. Her usually serene expression, a mask of imperial composure cultivated over centuries of rule, fractured into a bewildered frown. The hum of the hall died completely, replaced by an oppressive, suffocating silence. Every pair of alien eyes, from the stoic 4-armed generals to the ethereal, energy-based advisors, was fixed on the human, then on the Empress, then back to the human, trying to reconcile the impossible sight before them. Lyra, the Empress finally articulated. Her voice, usually a melodic cascade, now held an almost imperceptible tremor of bewilderment that resonated with a subtle sonic discomfort through the hall. "Who is that beside you?" The question hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken implications, with the weight of tradition, expectation, and the utter impossibility of the moment. Princess Lyra, her beautiful, intricate facial markings glowing faintly, met her mother's gaze with a steadfast resolve that belied her usual demure grace. A gentle, almost defiant smile touched her lips, a stark contrast to the palpable horror radiating from the surrounding court. Her voice, clear and resonant, cut through the tense silence like a pure, unwavering beam of light. "Mother," she replied, her words slow and deliberate, designed to land with maximum impact, "this is Cale, the human I married." The revelation struck the court like a physical blow. The silence deepened, becoming almost painful, so absolute that the soft clicking of the Empress's own internal biological clock could almost be heard. A few of the more sensitive Xylarian courtiers recoiled, their intricate sensory organs flinching as if subjected to an intolerable cacophony. One elder statesman, known for his unshakable composure, stumbled backward, his 6 legs tangling, nearly toppling. Whispers, then murmurs, began to ripple through the assembly like an uncontrolled contagion, building in intensity from shocked gasps to low, disbelieving rumblings. Empress Xylara's primary eyes, usually calm and all-knowing, drilled into Cale, assessing this unthinkable being who stood so casually, so defiantly in her sacred presence, let alone dared to claim her daughter as his spouse. He was so plain, so unspecial by their standards. No natural bioluminescence, no extra limbs for complex manipulations, no visible psychic aura. Yet he stood there, remarkably still, his 2 human eyes meeting the Empress's formidable, multifaceted gaze. Without a trace of fear, a tiny, almost imperceptible curve playing on the corner of his lips, a smirk, the audacity, the sheer, unfathomable audacity of it all. The Empress felt a cold dread begin to coil in the pit of her being. This wasn't just a marriage. It was an act of profound defiance, a direct challenge to centuries of Xylarian doctrine and the very essence of their imperial dignity. What had her daughter done? And more importantly, what unspeakable qualities did this primitive human possess that could possibly captivate a princess of the mighty Xylarian Empire, binding her to him in a union that could unravel the very fabric of their prestigious lineage and send shock waves through the entire known galaxy? The Empress's mind raced, already formulating countless scenarios, each more disastrous than the last, as the impossible reality of the human Cale and the princess who married him settled like a heavy, suffocating shroud over the once luminous hall. The revelation of Princess Lyra's marriage to a human, Cale, sent seismic tremors through the meticulously ordered Xylarian Empire, far beyond the confines of the royal palace. Whispers, initially hushed and disbelieving, escalated into a cacophony of outrage and scandal that reverberated through every noble house, every military command, and every scientific academy. How could their beloved princess, heir to a lineage stretching back through countless stellar epochs, bind herself to such a primitive being? Empress Xylara, a master of political maneuvering and strategic patience, recognized that open condemnation or immediate banishment would only solidify her daughter's defiance and potentially spark an unprecedented rift within the royal family. Instead, she chose a more insidious path, a series of subtle yet profoundly challenging tests. These were not overt trials, but rather meticulously orchestrated scenarios disguised as routine court functions, grand scientific symposiums, and high-level diplomatic engagements. The Empress's goal was clear: to expose Cale's inherent lack of Zellerian refinement, his perceived intellectual inferiority, and his supposed inability to comprehend the complex nuances of their advanced civilization. She believed with unwavering conviction that his primitivism would inevitably reveal itself, forcing Lyra to acknowledge her grave error and the court to see the human for the unsuitable match he truly was. The first such test occurred during a highly anticipated grand symposium on quantum entanglement, a theoretical field where the Xylarian Empire boasted the most advanced understanding in the known galaxy. The finest Xylarian minds, beings whose intellects could process multi-dimensional equations in mere moments, were locked in a heated weeks-long debate over a baffling theoretical anomaly in their latest quantum model. The anomaly defied every established principle, every logical pathway, threatening to invalidate years of research. Cale, seated quietly in the observation gallery beside Lyra, was merely a silent spectator, his presence tolerated only due to his wife's insistence. As the Xylarian scholars, their luminous skin pulsing with the strain of their mental efforts, grew increasingly frustrated. One particularly venerable Xylarian, his 6 eyes narrowed in deep concentration, projected a complex, swirling holographic representation of the anomaly. It was then that Cale, his voice surprisingly calm amidst the intellectual turmoil, casually interjected. "It looks like a probability wave collapsing on itself, doesn't it?" He mused almost to himself, then elaborated. "Like when you try to measure something that's both a particle and a wave, and your observation forces it into one state, but the wave part still exists, just in a different dimension, creating feedback." The Xylarian scholars, initially scoffing at the human's crude, almost childish analogy, paused. Their rigid, highly structured logic had always sought definitive, singular answers. Cale's concept of something being both a particle and a wave simultaneously, and the idea of feedback from a collapsing probability, was utterly alien to their deterministic physics. Yet within hours, by exploring the implications of this seemingly simplistic human perspective, a brilliant young Xylarian theoretician had an unexpected breakthrough, untangling the anomaly in a way their advanced but rigidly structured logic had completely missed. The hall buzzed not with triumph, but with a bewildered, almost unsettling realization that a human had provided the key. Another incident unfolded during a critical demonstration of new energy conduit designs, a project vital for the Xylarian fleet's next generation of starships. The demonstration was proceeding flawlessly until, without warning, a critical power coupling, a marvel of Xylarian biomechanical engineering, began to destabilize. Its intricate crystalline structure glowed an alarming, erratic crimson, threatening a catastrophic overload that could vaporize a significant portion of the testing facility. Panic erupted among the Xylarian engineers, their multiple limbs flailing as they frantically searched for the emergency shut-down protocols, their advanced diagnostic tools screaming warnings. Amidst the chaos, Cale, who had been observing the demonstration with an almost unnerving stillness, moved. Without a word, without consulting any data pad or waiting for instructions, he simply picked up a discarded, oddly shaped maintenance tool. A simple, blunt instrument by Xylarian standards, and with a precise, almost instinctive motion, struck a specific point on the rapidly destabilizing coupling. There was a dull thud, a faint spark, and then, miraculously, the crimson glow subsided, replaced by a steady, safe blue. The coupling stabilized instantly. A stunned silence fell over the engineers. Cale, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, explained, "It was vibrating too much, getting out of phase. A good old mechanical tap sometimes fixes the resonance." His explanation, again, was shockingly simple, almost crude, yet undeniably effective. Empress Zalara, observing these incidents from a hidden viewing chamber, felt a growing unsettling curiosity mingle with her initial disdain. Each time, Cale didn't rely on their complex calculations, their elaborate protocols, or their high-tech solutions. Instead, he employed an intuitive, almost barbaric practicality, a hands-on approach that somehow, inexplicably, worked where their own sophisticated methods failed. Her courtiers, initially exchanging knowing, condescending glances, now exchanged puzzled, even slightly awed, looks. Murmurs no longer of scandal but of thinly veiled respect began to circulate. The Empress's frustration mounted. Every attempt to expose his flaws only seemed to reveal an unexpected, almost inconvenient strength. She realized these minor tests were insufficient. To truly prove or disprove his worth, to understand the depth of her daughter's choice, something far more significant, far more dire was needed. As if in answer to her unspoken desire, a deep space distress signal, which had been plaguing their most advanced decryption algorithms for weeks, its origin and nature a baffling mystery, began to intensify dramatically. Its erratic energy signature pulsed with an alarming regularity, indicating an immediate, grave threat that even their formidable military and unparalleled intelligence network could not yet identify. This was the opening she had been waiting for, a true crisis, a challenge that would demand more than mere intellect or technical prowess. This would be the ultimate test, the crucible that would finally reveal the human's true measure, for better or worse. The fate of the Empire, and perhaps Lyra's future, would depend on it. The deep space distress signal, which had been a baffling intermittent pulse for weeks, suddenly erupted into a terrifying, undeniable clarity, its chaotic energy signature, resolving into a chilling message that echoed through every Xylarian communication array, a rogue sentient stellar anomaly. A cosmic entity of pure, consuming energy was on an irreversible collision course with Elira Prime, the very heart of the Xylarian Empire. This was no ordinary celestial body. It was a living void, capable of draining the life force from stars, absorbing the very essence of planets, and rendering even the most advanced energy weapons utterly useless against its impenetrable absorption. Field. Panic, a raw, primal emotion rarely seen in the stoic Xylarian populace, rippled through the capital, spreading like a contagion from the lowest citizens to the highest echelons of power. The Xylarian defense fleet, the pride of their empire, a formidable armada built for conventional warfare against known threats, found its cutting-edge energy cannons and particle disruptors simply dissolving into the anomaly's swirling depths. their immense power swallowed without so much as a tremor. Their most powerful shields flickered and failed, their ships becoming ghost vessels, drained and lifeless. Despair settled over Zalira Prime like a suffocating shroud. Empress Zalira, her luminous blue skin now appearing almost pale with worry, convened the Grand Council, an assembly of the Empire's most brilliant strategists, renowned scientists, and seasoned military leaders. The vast, echoing chamber, usually filled with confident pronouncements and innovative solutions, was now heavy with grim predictions and the weight of their collective helplessness. One by one the esteemed members rose, their voices laced with defeat, offering increasingly dire assessments. Their models showed no escape, no defense, no possible way to halt the anomaly's relentless advance. The end of Xylarian civilization seemed not just possible, but inevitable. It was amidst this suffocating atmosphere of impending doom that Princess Lyra, her usual gentle demeanor, replaced by a quiet, fierce strength, stepped forward. Her voice, though soft, cut through the despairing murmurs. "Mother," she pleaded, her gaze unwavering, "Kale has studied the anomaly's energy signature. He believes he has a way to disrupt it, a method unlike anything our science has conceived." A wave of incredulous murmurs swept through the council. A human? What could a primitive human possibly understand about a cosmic entity that defied their millennia of accumulated knowledge? Scornful glances were cast towards Kale, who stood quietly beside Lyra, his face impassive. But with no other options, with the very fabric of their empire unraveling before their eyes, the Empress, swallowing her immense pride and battling her ingrained skepticism, commanded Kale to explain his primitive idea. Kale, stepping forward into the center of the council chamber, stood before the gathered might of the Azylan Empire, a lone figure of unassuming humanity, facing a galaxy of advanced beings. He spoke not of energy weapons or shield harmonics, but of something called chaotic systems and acoustic resonance, concepts that were either rudimentary or entirely alien to Xylarian physics, which relied on precise, predictable patterns. He proposed not a weapon to destroy the anomaly, but a counter-frequency generator, a device that, if tuned precisely, could introduce a chaotic, unpredictable vibration into the anomaly's structured energy field, disrupting its ability to absorb and destabilizing its very existence. It was, he explained, like finding the exact off-key note that could shatter a perfectly tuned crystal. The sheer audacity of the concept, its reliance on seemingly random, unpredictable forces, baffled the Xylarian minds. But the most critical and terrifying aspect of his plan was the execution. It required a massive instantaneous energy burst, focused with pinpoint accuracy, and a human pilot to manually calibrate the counter-frequency mid-flight. Their automated systems, designed for perfect, predictable responses, simply couldn't adapt to the chaotic, intuitive adjustments Kale envisioned. It was, in essence, a suicide mission, requiring a ship to fly dangerously close to the anomaly's churning, energy-draining core, where even their most robust vessels had been annihilated. The council erupted in renewed protests, labeling the plan as reckless, suicidal, and utterly insane. Princess Lyra's face was etched with horror, her luminous eyes pleading with Kale to reconsider. But Kale, his gaze fixed on the Empress, his jaw set with a quiet determination, spoke with unwavering conviction. "I will do it," he stated, his voice calm and firm, cutting through the rising clamor. "I can make the adjustments. I understand the chaos." Against the horrified protests of Lyra and the disbelieving stares of the council, Cale's resolve remained unshaken. The Empress, seeing the desperation in her people's eyes and the unwavering conviction in the humans, made the only choice she could. She gave the order. Within hours, a modified Xylarian scout vessel, stripped of non-essential systems and equipped with Cale's hastily constructed, yet remarkably robust, counter-frequency modulator, stood ready. The launch bay was silent, save for the hum of the ship's engines. Lyra stood by the Empress, her hand pressed to her mouth, her multifaceted eyes filled with unshed tears. Cale, dressed in a simple flight suit, offered her a small, reassuring smile before stepping into the cockpit. He was a tiny, fragile speck against the vast, terrifying unknown dot as the scout vessel launched, a single defiant streak against the darkening sky. The Xylarian fleet held its breath, their advanced sensors tracking its progress. Cale piloted the ship with a strange, almost unnatural grace, weaving through the debris of failed Xylarian defenses, his human hands, not meant for their complex, multi-limbed controls, working with surprising dexterity. He navigated the vessel into the anomaly's churning, swirling heart, a maelstrom of raw, absorbing energy that pulsed with an ominous, hungry light. The ship's internal alarms shrieked, warning of critical energy drain and structural integrity failure, but Cale ignored them, his focus absolute. He was a blur of motion, making minute, instinctual adjustments to the frequency modulator, his eyes glued to the chaotic waveforms on the screen, his mind calculating, adapting, feeling the unpredictable rhythm of the anomaly. The Xylarian fleet watched in stunned silence, their long-range scanners relaying the impossible. For the first time, the rogue stellar anomaly, this cosmic devourer, began to flicker. Its terrifying light wavered, its swirling patterns disrupted, its immense form momentarily shrinking under the assault of a human-designed, human-piloted solution. The counter-frequency was working, but Cale was deep within the anomaly, the scout vessel a tiny, fragile spark against its immense, consuming power. The flickering intensified, becoming more violent, more erratic. Had he succeeded? Or had he merely enraged the cosmic entity, sealing his own fate and the fate of Xylara Prime? The answer hung suspended in the vast, silent void as the Xylarian Empire watched, helpless, waiting for the final, terrifying outcome. The Xylarian fleet, a silent, watchful armada, held its collective breath as the rogue stellar anomaly, once a terrifying, all-consuming void, began its final, violent throes. The flickering, which had started as a subtle tremor, intensified into a chaotic dance of light and shadow, its immense form convulsing as Cale's calculated chaotic frequencies tore at its very essence. The scout vessel, a tiny, defiant speck at the anomaly's heart, was buffeted mercilessly, its structural integrity, alarms screaming a constant, desperate wail. Then, with a final blinding flash that momentarily overwhelmed the Xylarian sensors, the anomaly imploded, not with a destructive roar, but with a silent inward collapse, dissipating into a harmless cloud of residual energy. The vast expanse, of space, moments before filled with cosmic terror, was suddenly, miraculously clear. Xylera Prime was safe. A collective, audible sigh of relief swept through the Xylarian fleet, a sound rarely heard from such a disciplined military force. Cheers, tentative at first, then growing in volume and intensity, erupted across all communication channels, echoing through the bridge of every starship. The fleet returned to a capital city that, just moments before, had braced for annihilation. Now, Xylera Prime pulsed with a vibrant, almost euphoric energy. Citizens who had huddled in underground shelters emerged to gaze at the clear sky, their multifaceted eyes wide with disbelief and profound gratitude. The atmosphere in the royal palace, once heavy with despair, was now charged with an almost electric awe. Every Xylarian, from the lowliest palace page to the highest-ranking admiral, stood in the grand hall, their attention fixed on the main portal. When it cycled open, revealing the battered, scorched scout vessel, a wave of hushed anticipation swept through the crowd. And then, against all odds, Cale emerged. He was battered, his flight suit torn in places, his face grimed with sweat and residue from the ship's systems, but his human eyes, though heavy with exhaustion, shone with an undeniable triumph. He walked with a slight limp, but his posture was resolute, his presence radiating an almost